Welcome to TokuTalkers. We're only gonna talk about Super Sentai for now. Maybe we'll talk about Kamen Rider later. But I'm your host Buster. I dragged Wyatt into yet another stupid podcast, and
hmm
so yeah,
I love stupid podcasts. That's the one thing I love the most in this world. So,
exactly, yeah. And today we're just gonna talk about GoZyuger preconceptions and all the
mm,
promo material because I'm very excited about this new Super Sentai show. It's an anniversary show. It's lots of even outside the anniversary stuff, they're doing a lot of interesting things, and I just want to yap about all the promo material and stuff with Wyatt. Um,
mm,
but first, let's talk about our Super Sentai history. Wyatt, what is your possibly predictable history of Super Sentai?
sure. um, well, like many people that live in America, Power Rangers was my first exposure to Super Sentai and that kind of stuff. Eventually, as far as like Tokusatsu in general, like I became a big fan of Godzilla, but that's besides the point. I would say it was around the time that Nickelodeon got Samurai that I got interested in the Japanese side of Super Sentai because before then I was kind of only vaguely familiar. I was like, oh, it's based on a Japanese show, um, and it was seeing Samurai and being like, this kind of sucks. What was the original version like? And then going and watching Shinkenger uh, was sort of my first big exposure to Super Sentai, which I'm sure is similar to a lot of people. I know that Shinkenger is like an entry point for a lot of people. For me, it was like while Gokaiger was airing, but you know, because that was like at the same time that Samurai was airing in America, I went and watched Shinkenger. I also watched Ranger because that was the Power Rangers show, obviously. And then I just went and like kind of like handpicked around certain Sentai, ones from like the 2000s, ones from the 90s. Um, but ever since Go Busters, I've been trying to keep up with it year to year. And I think there's only a couple examples of shows that I like completely missed out on. Like Don Brothers was one that I missed out on and had to go back to later, which it sucks because that show is amazing. Uh,
Yeah.
and then the Zenkaiger was also so like those 2 years I would say. But then after that, like King Oger, I watched through it, and then Boom Boonger, I watched the first half of it, and we'll watch the rest of it at some point. Um, but yeah, as far as like that's my baseline history, was that like I grew up with Power Rangers. I fell off sort of at the SPD era. Came back to it when it was airing on Nickelodeon, and they would air other marathons of stuff like Ninja Storm, and Time
Yeah,
Force,
on
which I was like, these shows are
Nicktoons,
great. And then would watch
the
Samurai and
modern.
be like, this sucks.
Yeah,
but
Ninja Storm's a
how about
gem.
you? Yeah, how about you? What is your
Well,
history with the
I feel
series?
like I have like a different like everyone always says it was the Nickelodeon or like Dio Saban thing that got them into Sentai. I actually have a weird
Mm,
Sentai story because
cool.
uh okay, so yeah, I watched Power Rangers, but also I love to look up Power Rangers clips on YouTube when I was
Mm,
way too young to be going on YouTube. And
yeah.
that's how I discovered a little thing called Super Sentai and be like, whoa, there's
Mm,
Japanese versions of these shows? But
mm,
here's the thing. I only ever watched one Sentai until 2017, and that was Go Onger.
mm-hmm.
I still need to rewatch that, but I remember loving Go Onger. It just hit a
Yeah.
I am like one of those people who say Go Onger and RPM are equal because I know that's
Yeah,
a
I think
hot
that that's
take, but I do love both of those shows for different reasons,
mm,
and even some of them for similar reasons. I think they're more similar than people give them credit for. Um,
yeah. I really
Specifically the
like I
comedy.
thought it was a very cute show, like in the sense that like yeah, I just liked a lot about it. I think I do slightly prefer like Car Ranger as far as like car Sentai go, but I'm also
Yeah.
a huge boomer when it comes to like Sentai preferences, which we'll talk about later. But
Yeah, no, I still gotta finish. I've watched half of Car Ranger and I enjoyed it. I need to
mm,
finish it eventually. Uh, but I didn't really. It wasn't until I was getting into Kamen Rider with Xaid that I saw Q Ranger was airing and I decided to hop
mm,
on. It took me a
Well,
while to
that's a good
finish Q
one.
Ranger. I really like Q Ranger. I used to hate it for dumb reasons I don't want to get into, but I
Because
do
of
love it.
Yosha Lucky, you were
Yeah,
like,
people just yeah, it was just people made the dumbest, like, most surface level critiques, and it's like some people even
hmm,
went like, I don't want to name names, but some people might have made some lies. So
yeah.
or just gone crazy and talking about this kid show. So we'll see.
Hmm.
Like, hopefully that's not us. Um, but yeah, I do love Q Ranger. Lupat was kind of if on it. Like I
Yeah,
have watched half of it, but like
it's a fun show, but it like in my opinion, if we're gonna get into some hot takes here, it just never really develops beyond its premise. It has like a cool premise, and then it sort of just like dicks around, but not in a fun Don Brothers Z way. It just really feels very undynamic, like the entire way
yeah.
through. It just feels like you're kind of watching like it feels like very outdated structurally compared to like other
Yeah, not to
more
mention,
modern
I think the
Sentai.
Sixth Ranger, who had the potential to like
It's
shake the show
bad.
up, is like, yeah, he's just, ooh, he's just kind of
Yeah,
boring.
me and friend of the show Cody are constantly roasting him as far as like whenever it's brought up. We're like, man, remember how good of an idea that was, and they didn't seize upon it. But yeah.
Yeah, that could describe a lot of Lupet. Real Soldier, I thought was better. It still has a lot of
Hmm.
issues, but like Real Soldier in general,
Yeah.
like I do think is just like the ambition does help it a lot.
Mm.
Like, and it's just a fun show. Like, even despite its
Yeah.
like narrative failings at times, but the ending really does make up for it. I think Real Soldier is one of my favorite Sentai endings. And
Yeah,
then like,
there's a lot about Ryu Soldier I like, and it has a lot of similarities to Ginga Man, which is one of my favorites.
yeah, I did start
I
watching
don't,
Ginga Man, and it's pretty
yeah,
good.
and my biggest problem with it is the Six Ranger. Again, I just really do not like Kanalo. Uh,
Yeah, same.
but I can understand. Like, I don't know. It's just like not a favorite type of character for me. So,
Yeah. And then like I've been consistently watching all the Reiwa stuff. Like I like
mm,
Kira Major, I love Zenkaiger. Don
yeah.
Brothers I love a lot. King Ojo I love a lot.
Hmm.
And then Boom Booger I just finished, like the final episode just aired and I watched it this morning. And I
How do you feel
like
about that?
it took me a while to fully click with it, but now I consider it like
Mm,
on par with the other shows. Like
okay, yeah,
that
because I remember last time we talked about it, which
I was a
was
bit mixed
around
on
the
it, yeah.
point of the second half of the show, when whatever what it was his
Boom
face
Boom Violet.
becomes well, yeah, when Boom Boom Violet. But I was thinking like when the Orange Ranger becomes like Inuyasha, like that's
Yeah.
the like the like that's around the last time we talked about it, and it was like I was like it's like pretty good, but maybe it will get. And
Yeah.
a lot of people seem to like the second half of the show, so
Oh yeah, the second
I'm
half
excited
like
to get
goes
back to it.
places. Like I really
Mm.
do appreciate, and it just like even like I meant to be retroact. It's one of those great second halves that makes you retroactively appreciate the first half.
Yeah,
Like
I felt
kind
that
of
way
like
with King Oger because even though I liked the first half of King Oger, by the end of it, it felt kind of like dragged out and a little like underwhelming.
yeah.
And then the second half, I was like, nah, this is good. This is really, really good.
I honestly feel a
It
little
is
reverse
the
on
whole
King
show.
Oger. I thought the second half
Oh, okay.
like
You didn't like the second half as much
no,
as
I
the.
did like the second half. It's just like at the beginning with like the Kyoryuger crossover, it kind of felt bogged down.
Oh yeah, that sucked. But I didn't. I also skipped that because I watched it all like around the time
Yeah.
that it was
I
ending, so
watched
I
it
would just had
weekly and
it
I was
all.
like, oh man, when can like this is like I this is cute, but also
I'm
why?
not a huge Carriager fan personally,
Yeah.
but we don't have to. Again, we don't have to
Well,
get too much into
yeah,
hot
but
takes
like,
here.
yeah, those are. I mean, we can get into like hot takes of our number one Sentai later, but for now, let's talk about the marketed number one
Hmm.
Sentai, GoZyuger,
Yeah.
because oh boy, the new Super Sentai's coming and it looks mighty interesting. I want to talk about the production staff,
Hmm.
because I do think this is actually what got me excited. Ryuta Tasaki is the head director. Now, from what I
Hmm.
understand of how these toku shows work, there's the head director and then there's the like all the like episode to episode
Episode direct. Yeah. Yeah.
directors. Um, and Tasaki was the main director for Dawn Brothers, and he
Hmm.
directed some of the best episodes of that show too. So
Hmm.
it makes sense. He's the head
Very
director.
happy about that.
And wait, I want to pull up his Kamen Rider works because I'm looking at the Sentai wiki right now. Need to because he
Hmm.
did some like notable Kamen Rider stuff. that I want to talk about because that also got me excited.
Mm.
Uh, okay. Yeah, he directed like some of like yeah, he's been like episode to episode directors for like Kamen Rider. I don't know where
Mm. Mm-hmm.
specifically like I remember like him like
Seeing and
I
being like, oh, that guy.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
the
think it
name
might
is
have been one of
very familiar to me, but I
oh, he
couldn't.
did like a bunch of the movies I liked, like Superhero Senki and
Mm.
oh, he did Paradise Lost. Paradise Lost goes like yeah, that has really great directing.
Mm.
So like the Fies movie, to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
clear. But yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
not
So
the book about
yeah, not
Lucifer.
the book. Yeah, the Fies, Kamen Rider Fies Paradise Lost. Yeah, and then the writer is a new writer, but someone that's kind of familiar. Akihiko Inoue. She's
Mm.
the daughter of Toshiki Inoue.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
Let's hope she has the sauce like her father.
yeah, like I was reading a bit about her, and it's like apparently she had a pseudonym for so long because she didn't want to be labeled as the daughter for Toshiki Inoue, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Which
Mm.
that's fair. And
It's like
she
kind of
wrote
reminds me of
some
like
Gotchard episodes before like getting the head writer
mhm.
job here. And I
Oh,
do
which
like her
ones?
Gotchard episodes. Let me double check because yeah, I know we have very mixed feelings on Gotchard. At least you
But
do.
there are episodes of Gotchard I like, so
Yeah,
that's why
I
I'm
know you
like, oh,
made a
it could
thread
be one of
about
the
it.
good ones,
Let
you
me
know.
go grab her Kamen Rider credits real quick. I'm using the. I know the writer wikis aren't the best, but like, or the
Yeah,
Tokusatsu wikis, but
yeah,
they at
they're
least give you
not
the
good.
basic.
Exactly. It's like they're not good. Like the trivia sections are complete garbage, though. Like it's usually
Yeah,
just
don't
people
look at the trivia
spitballing.
sections.
Like
um,
this was the Kamen Rider Duke, maybe based on the SpongeBob joke. Every villain
what?
is lemons.
What?
That's
That was an
I remember
actual.
that. Anybody from 2013?
Okay, she wrote the Zikyun episode. She wrote Rine's
Super good.
debut. She wrote Rine's final form.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, she's done some of the better
Yeah,
episodes of Gotchard.
Zukyun. That's probably my favorite. Like chemi focused
Yeah,
like
like I
comedy of the
like
week
that episode a
episode.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also the village episode with the ghosts and
Oh,
like.
that's yeah, that is super good. So
Okay, so
that
you're
one
you're
was
sold. You're sold.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So those were two episodes that I shouted out when Gotchard was coming to an end. And I was like, look, I don't want to keep being an asshole and saying that it sucks. So let me talk about how much I like these things I like about it.
Yeah.
Those are episodes that I shouted out
And
about
it's
really
pretty
liking
fitting
it.
how Inoue is writing this show because a lot of GoZyuger does gives me that the feeling they're trying to recapture Dawn Brothers in some
Oh,
way.
absolutely. Yeah, I felt
Because
that.
like well not just because of the anniversary elements, but just because the premise is they're all fighting each other to
Hmm.
become the number one.
Hmm.
And like Dawn Brothers has a lot of inner conflict between the cast, so
Yeah, it's very like
that's
non-traditional structure as far as the team. It's almost never like, oh, all five of them are fighting at the same time together, like at once. Like there's usually some stupid thing that's like the
keeps them in
team
the
is
way.
divided. Yeah, exactly. So and that just it keeps it so the formula so fresh. So I hope that this can really like follow up on that because yeah, like when
Yeah.
that premise was introduced, like I have felt the past few years the shows have been in the shadow of Don Brothers, and they've been trying to might make their own like identity outside of Don Brothers, and I feel like this is the first time that they got something, or maybe not the first time. I feel like Boom Boomger and King Oger have their own like there are very good shows,
Yeah.
uh, but this one. It immediately has that same kind of like what? This is weird sort of energy
Yeah.
that I could see going in a direction similar to Dumb Brothers. Um, whereas like there were things about like King Oger, for example, like oh yeah, it had it so that like all the kings weren't on the same side at first, but its major innovation was that they were standing around in CG backgrounds the entire time, and they
Yeah.
spent a shit ton of money on that. So it was like
Pretty much,
like
it was
that kind of
trying
like
to
took
capture
away
that
from the
streaming
character focus.
service trying to catch that
Yeah.
streaming service like energy of like, oh, look at the look,
Mm.
we're using the same technology as the Mandalorian. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like this team, like they still like will team up from what we've seen, but then
Mm.
again, they might be misleading, because like sometimes they mislead with editing in the trailers,
Yeah.
like so like that's interesting. Like at least they'll team up sometimes, but they'll still like be fighting they're still like all like out for each other in some way, or like
Mm.
numero uno for lack of a better word. I guess we
Yeah.
can get into like these character descriptions we have, and then like okay, along with the announcement, they had a little stage show that I made Wyatt
Mm.
watch.
Yeah.
Uh, which okay, the cool thing about the stage show is they got back a bunch of returning Sentai Reds to do like
Mm.
voices.
Yeah,
Like
which is always nice.
yeah, and also Zen Kaiser. Even does Zen Kaiser a red at this point? I think he's a red at this point.
Yeah, nobody Juran, nobody is like, yeah,
Poor
he's the red
Juran.
version.
I love him so much. It's kind of like, um, but yeah, and and now the plot from what we've seen, that monster's actually not appearing in the show because I can't find like him in the trailers. Maybe he was like a later edition.
Yeah.
We'll see. I kind of hope
I
so
think
because I
like
really
he makes
like that monster.
yeah, I like it. He makes a joke though at the end where he's like, like, oh, if you have any other roles for me in the show, please contact me.
Yeah, that
So
was
it
really
seems like
cute.
he is just like a stage show monster that just exists to like get his ass kicked by
Yeah.
the GoZyuger. So
But still, it was a really fun stage show. Not just because of the returning actors, but just like it gives us a hint of like all the GoZyuger personalities and
yeah.
stuff. And also like I love the fact that we have another dance transformation. Is it like a
Yeah.
dance? Is like the clap your
Yeah, they do
hands?
the like
Yeah.
rhythmic, yeah,
Yeah.
they like pose multiple times and
It's basically a
clap
dance
the thing.
transformation.
Then they
Yeah.
have a big claw or whatever.
Yeah, which the cool thing about the claw is that also the toy at least can also transform into the mecha. So
Oh yeah, I always like when they do that because
yeah,
to me, like, I don't know, the role play toys. I'm usually not very interested in. I'm such a robot guy that I just usually like getting robots. That's sort of
yeah,
like the thing I like the most. Whenever a new Sentai comes out or whatever, I'm always attracted to like the robot, like how cool the toy of the robot is. Whereas like the transformation stuff, I'm not super interested in. That's why like I never really get like Common Rider belts.
yeah.
Because I would rather have like a toy of a Common Rider than like the belt to have.
That's
Even
fair.
though they're cool, like I understand why they're cool. I think the only roleplay toy I have is the Tokyo Change thing.
Well,
Oh, sorry.
that's also
But
because it's
that's
like you can
because it
use the Zord.
uses the yes,
Yeah,
exactly. It can use the trains to
yeah.
transform with it. So I just got that because and that was like super cheap at the time, when TokuTalkers was airing. Just like 2014 or 13, whatever. So
Oh god, it's been 10 years since TokuTalkers. Oh my
yeah.
god. Yeah. So let's get into these character descriptions. First off, we have Goju Wolf, the Red Ranger.
Mm,
Tono Horyu, and he's described as a strong man with a good heart, but also unsociable and foul mouth, which causes him to bounce between jobs. So basically, he's a bum.
yeah.
Uh,
Hmm.
and
Yeah, and he's like he speaks his mind, so it ends up like causing more trouble than he's
yeah.
worth, essentially. Uh,
Which I do like what we've seen of him from both the trailer and the stage show. So,
mm,
I also like he because Wolf he can howl, which is pretty neat.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, I like that they've somehow been able to make the past few Reds feel pretty unique from each other, whereas
yeah,
I feel like a lot of more modern Sentai, like previous Sentai, they all feel very generically the same. Like there's
yeah.
not
All
that
the
much of a
Reiwa
difference.
Reds all have
Yeah.
been pretty like diverse compared to each other. Like they still have like similarities between, of course, but like there's
Mhm.
more like as we saw in that stage show, you put them all together and they have like unique character interactions and stuff.
Yeah. I
Um,
feel like the only one that I would classify as like pretty generic would be Gira. And that's because his gimmick of like I'm evil is very shallow. Like that it's
yeah,
just like
purposefully so.
you never really buy into it as like that's his thing. Like you always just
Yeah.
assume good faith in him, so like it never really sticks. Whereas
Yeah.
like Momoitaro is that is him. That is
Yeah,
like
he is
what he's
him.
like. Yeah, and then same thing with Taya in Boom Boom Jury, like he's just a cool guy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And then we have for the Blue Ranger, Goju Leon, Riko.
mm,
I'm sorry, I'm gonna.
yeah.
It's been a while since I've done this, and this is my first time saying all these names out loud.
mm,
Gozu Leon, Riko Hayakawa,
mm,
Haokua, and he's a people pleaser strategist. In the past, he was a famous idol, but an old untold incident forced him to leave. So we got Flamboyant Blue, always a fan of that archetype.
mm,
Um, there's not really much. We don't really see much of him. We in the trailer we do see his like the Gokai change of the season, where okay, instead of just transforming into like their respective color, they're all transforming
mm,
into the reds with just their shields around them. Which
yeah,
that's a like they're kind of like keeping it like the entire gimmick of the show is that they're all fighting the Red Rangers in past, so it's like hey, if they're gonna do any changes, may as well keep the red theming
yeah.
ongoing.
And that's another thing I can maybe a little bit of a small complaint here with the stage show is that there's no way that Don Momotaro would ever be controlled by mind control of a mere monster. Come on. That
Yeah.
is he's far too powerful to be put under something as simple as mind control.
Yeah.
What is
Well, that's why
this?
the stage show isn't canon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, that's another thing I want to bring up. It's like we don't even know if the actors are even returning or if they're just going to be like the suits themselves. I don't
Mm,
like. It's going to be very interesting to see how they play out with that like versus the Sentai Reds thing. If it's like,
mm,
or if like maybe it's like I've been speculating that the actors will return but play different roles. So that
yeah.
might. And they're
Wait,
not
hold
going to
on.
get everyone. What?
I just went on the wiki. Sukasa is
Okay.
fucking okay.
That was a
Hold on.
YouTube video. That was a YouTube video that they just put out where it's like, hey, here's the other anniversary
Okay,
elements. Like
okay.
talking. That was just a silly YouTube video. Don't
Okay,
worry about it.
so is it gonna be because I remember when Zio was airing
Yeah,
and
it
people were
was
making
basically like
jokes
a point
about like,
five.
haha, it's like decade two, and then Sukasa came into the show and we're like, what the fuck? It's literally decade two.
Yeah, no, that was just a silly YouTube video where it's like, hey, it's anniversary, like Sentais and Riders meeting with the new
Mm,
one. You know,
mm,
um, it seems like they kind of do that like every time there's a big anniversary where it's like, hey, here's a bunch of like silly YouTube, and like Toei Tokusatsu fan club specials
yeah,
to just like
good stuff.
goof off with. And then for the Yellow Ranger, Gozu Tarano, Ryugi Bakugami. He is physically
Mm,
strong but naive, and he worships the power of the Tega sword, which is like the transformation device slash mecha, but at
mm,
the cost of being an outcast from his family. Very interested to see how this will go.
yeah,
Like
I
just
kind of
because
like
like
those types of characters that are like sort of stuck in their ways or very like
yeah,
dutiful or devout or whatever, and
yeah.
then
I don't
sort of
want to
need to
say
be
like
pushed out
anything.
of their comfort zone.
Yeah,
So,
I don't want to say anything too much because it's like I was talking to some friends. Like I was kind of calling him like he seems kind of religious, but it's like I
mm,
know Japan and the West have like different like philosophies on that kind of thing. So it's like it's gonna be very interested to see how like that plays out.
mm,
I don't want to like yeah, but it is. I am very interested to see, especially because they were doing some promotional art and Masami Obari, who
yeah,
helped create Bang Bravern and like also directed the Fatal Fury OVAs,
mm,
like did some art of that character and his mech. So I was like, I'm a little more sold just because of that Obari stamp.
yeah,
Um, then for green, we got Goju Eagle, Kijino Takara, and
mm,
he's a high school student with a very serious nature who wants to become more relaxed.
mm,
Which also I do find him like my friends were watching the trailer and we were like, oh, he seems a bit like nerdy and stiff, and I'm like, oh, and then reading this character description, that's the point where he's
mm,
trying to be this like flamboyant guy, but he's just like he does like no experience or riz about it, so
yeah,
yeah. Um, and then for the only girl on the team so far, Goju Unicorn, Sumino Ichikawa, she is a police academy candidate but was ostracized by fellow cadets, and now she's forced to become a private detective, and she is
mm,
unafraid to use her charms as a weapon. This is our first core female black Sentai Ranger, like in terms of
Mm,
black the suit color. Just want to be
yeah.
clear. Uh,
Mm,
and I do like her suit a lot. Very interested to see how she'll play in like the story, and I do like that she's a detective. Like I feel
yeah.
I always like detective archetypes in these tokus. So
Yeah, I like unicorns.
yeah, that
So there
too.
you go. They're
Yeah.
cool.
Uh,
And yeah, I think that that's like, yeah, that is a good, again, like it sucks that for the past few shows, like the past like 4 shows, I think they've only had one female character.
yeah.
Um, so, and Rita doesn't count. Shut up,
Yeah,
everybody.
Rita doesn't count. They're gender neutral. Gender neutral.
But so it's a little disappointing, but they've at least, again, like they've kind of done a good job like making them all feel like I felt like in Down Brothers, like the uh character Oni sister, she's like kind of the best
Yeah,
character. Like
she's the narrator.
she's one of the best for sure. And then like yeah, like in King Oger and like these characters, they're very good characters, like, and they don't
Yeah.
feel stereotypical at all. And like this feels like a very like a good um angle, like an angle that I haven't seen. Like the closest I could think of is like in Lupin Ranger versus Pat Ranger
Yeah.
because of being a cop, but that's like it. That's like as far back as I have to go to think of something that's kind of similar, but even this is like a little bit different from that.
Yeah.
Getting big blue SWAT vibes from the like disgraced cop now has to be on,
Yeah.
this
Gotta
like
watch Blue SWAT.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's really good. So,
Yeah.
check it out. I know cops.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
know,
I
but
can
it's
separate the fiction from reality
yeah.
sometimes. But yeah. And then like I'm not gonna go over the rest of the character description. I'm just gonna go through like general like because there's like faction stuff. The main faction
Mm,
of villains, Brydon, they are
mm,
looking for the Tenga swords themselves, and they seem bridal themed, so that's interesting.
yeah,
Like whatever that maybe they're just maybe they're gonna this is a dumb idea. They're gonna try to marry the mech.
yeah. It's like a Mario
Yeah.
Odyssey.
Yeah, basically, kind of. Yeah, they do kind of have like that Mario. I mean, no, that's
The
just wedding
Brutals.
aesthetic. Yeah,
Yeah.
brutal. Like, yeah, but like, yeah, I can see the and for the people who like, I also just want to bring this up. I don't the theme song's being performed by a band named Wieners, which is of course
Uh
they did
huh.
it for the pun, but also they
Mm,
also worked on Digimon Ghost Game's opening, and I like that opening.
okay. Yeah,
And
yeah.
like I've listened to the
I
live
like
version
that
of this.
show. I
Yeah,
I know some people don't like Ghost Game, but from what I watched like the first like 20 episodes of it.
yeah.
I really enjoyed it. So
Yeah, it seems neat. I need to watch it. Like I just like I'm so behind on my Digimon, but like
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and
but like
that
I
show
do.
like has pretty much no story at all. Like I think that that's why people don't like it is it's just like Monster of the Week stuff like almost the entire way through.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, I have listened to the live version of the theme song because they performed it like at a super like a live show, and
mm,
it sounds good. I can't wait to see the studio version next week. So yeah.
yeah.
Um. And then there's also going to be an ending song performed by Miyu Kanako. I have no idea who this is, but I heard but the preview we heard at the press conference sounds good. So I'm interested to
Mm,
see how it'll work. It sounds a bit melancholy, which is interesting. Like last time I
mm,
kind of felt that about Sentai ED was haha Dawn Brothers. So
yeah,
um
and yeah, the Don Brothers ending that is like it's like kind of melancholy, but it is also like I think it's only that because of association, because of there's so
yeah,
many episodes that end like completely insane, and you're
yeah,
like, what?
that
and
too.
then and then the song comes in, get the party going.
Yeah, it is like it is like an upbeat ending when you like like listen to it out of context, but in
Yeah,
context it's like oh
yeah, it's good stuff.
yeah. So episode 1 will be airing next week, but there was an episode 0 that was
Hmm.
basically the Legend War what but 2 minutes but
Yeah,
and also just
and with
CGI
the
mechs.
robots.
Yeah,
Yeah, the RV Robo was there. I clapped when I saw him.
yeah. I
Uh,
clapped when I saw it.
yeah, and Daijujin, which I've always
Yeah,
thought. I know, like most people just are like, it's the Megazord, but like, I think regardless of country, Daijujin, like that mecha suit
Yeah.
design is super good. Like it's just like a really good, cool design. So seeing it, I'm always glad. Um,
Yeah. I also like the Gundam 00 reference of the new mech coming in.
mm,
I just
yeah,
finished that Gundam, so I was like, oh,
I was,
like
yeah, I was getting like Sonic Forces vibes from the like,
lighting.
yeah, the lighting and the like giant generic robots that are like destroying all the Sentai mechas, and then like I was just like, oh, this is just like Sunset Hill or whatever, and Sonic Forces. So
That's a funny comparison, but kind of apt.
yeah, not a. I know that's not a favorable comparison because Sonic Forces sucks, but you know, I'm not saying the show sucks. I'm just saying it. I've thought of it because of like the robot designs remind me of like the Death Egg robos
Yeah.
and
I mean,
everything.
hey, if you want, you had it kind of makes sense for the villains just have like mass produced like
Yeah,
robot. Yeah.
I like that. I think it's cool actually.
Yeah.
So
And like yeah, the trailer also mentioned like there'll be like it's not just the monster will grow big. There's actually gonna be like super robots they're gonna have to fight win the mecha
mm,
battles, which like gives it more. I think Go Busters did something similar, but it's
yep.
been a while since we've seen. I think Zenkaiger also did something like that, but it's like also I always like when they shake up the mech fights,
Yeah,
like
Kira
in
Major also did it where it was like they bring kaiju like Ultraman style, like and then
yeah.
send them, and then they attach like the mask of whatever monster that they beat onto
Yeah, Care Major
like
was
the
very
kaiju.
resourceful with its monster design, and I'm very grateful for that. I know some people
Yeah,
don't like the constant reuse of bodysuits, but I'm like, hey, it lets us get more monsters than we could.
yeah.
So
I kind of like I liked it in the sense that for some reason in my head I always like internal consistency like design wise across monsters. Like I really like that in shows. In certain shows when the monsters look like too different from one another, it like stresses me out. How else
yeah,
to
it's not.
say it's just like I like it when there's like a common design, like a strong design theme across like the yummies in O's like all have like the mummy wrap under their body because they're mummy, you know, yummies, mummies.
Yeah,
Like stuff like that. Like whereas like, you know, I don't know, that like I'm thinking of something like Gav where some of the monsters kind of feel like there's a theme going, like really only like the stomach family I would say are like
yeah,
okay, they have like a strong gothic art design theme to them, and
yeah.
then like
At
Lakia and
least with
everything.
Gav, they all have the like the little bellies and stuff with
Yeah,
like
oh
the
yeah, they have the
mouths.
big mouth on the
Yeah, to help them like
stomach,
more
but like
unify them.
otherwise like they're just like big monster guy, you know, like
Yeah,
that's
I get you.
yeah. It's not bad. Like it's not like the worst example of it. It's just like that's an example where it's like in Kira Major, it's so standardized that it actually like appeals to my like neurodivergence for whatever reason. So
Yeah.
I like it.
Uh, yeah, I think that's nearly every preconception that they've released about
Hmm.
GoZyuger, before like the show actually comes out. Like,
So you
I,
said you were excited. Like
I'm
you're pretty
yeah, I'm
hyped
pretty
about the
excited.
show.
Yeah, like that's the reason I wanted to do this
Yeah.
podcast in the first place. It was like I'm stupid excited for this. Like
Hmm.
I am willing to be disappointed, but like right now, like everything I'm seeing is just clicking with me
Yeah.
super hard. So that like they're even like even in the trailer they show that G Gundam reference with like the new mech on top of like all the old
Mm.
mechs defeated. I know people are pissed about that, but in
Yeah.
my
Well.
mind, I like that, and I kind of feel like the show it's about defeating all the Sentai to get to the new number one spot. It's apt, and it's like
Mm.
I don't know. And sometimes I talked about this on like Bluesky, where it's like I feel like a little disrespect towards the past goes like it's
It goes.
in this like
Yeah.
age of like nostalgia pandering. It's a bit nourishing, you know.
Yeah. Especially because a lot of Toku shows, like especially like Sentai and Ultraman recently, have been very like navel gazy, talking about
Yeah,
like
Ultraman's
remember
been
the
getting better
past.
about it. Ultraman's getting
Yeah.
better
Yeah.
about it.
And Sentai It's just like there's been a few in the past few years that have been
Yeah, I mean,
like,
even Boom Boonger and King Oger had like crossovers shown in. I did like the
mhm,
Boom Boonger crossovers. I thought they were better than the King Oger one, but the King Oger
yeah,
one was kind of.
yeah. That's unfortunate because again, like I'm not like a huge. I understand why they did uh Georgia because that it's just like that makes sense with the
The
King
2000th
theme.
episode, it's an anniversary season. Like, yeah.
Yeah, they should have done what the what is the other why is his name leaving me? The Beast Sentai with the
Gingaman?
cubes.
Oh, Georgia.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, should have done that. Um,
Yeah, but it is what it is. I guess I want to end this podcast with one question to Wyatt and me. They did this, so I thought it'd be fun to end like this preconceptions episode with it. What are our number one Sentai series?
this is I've thought about this so long because it's for most of my life as a Sentai fan, I would say TokuTalkers
Yeah,
is my number one. And there's a lot of reasons why. There's a couple that I would put like Ginga Man. I'd say is like really, really close to being my favorite, but it's like I feel like Yasuko Kobayashi only gets like she only got better as she went
yeah.
along. Like so, Ginga Man is like kind of in the primordial soup, and then eventually like Ryuki is really good, and then
O's.
yeah, Deno and O's and Shinkenger Go Busters, and then what an amazing tear of series, by the way. I
Yeah,
think Deno is the only one that I would say is like really up to taste if you're gonna like it or not, but the rest are just super good. Um, but yeah, Tokuger. The only thing that has thrown that into question is watching Don Brothers recently because Don Brothers is so stupidly good that it just made me be like, this like warped the fabric of my brain. But I think just for like internal consistency, I'm gonna stick to Tokuger and I'm gonna explain that I just like I'm not a big train fan. Like I really don't give a shit about trains. Unfortunately, I was never a Thomas the Tank Engine fan as a kid or anything. But just like I immediately like really latched onto the theme of like, oh, these are all essentially children in the bodies of adults that are being thrown into this situation, and it's like funny but also kind of sad, you know.
yeah. Like that's the thing I
Because
love about Tokuger, where it's like they play into like the melancholy and like kind of the drama of the
hmm
concept.
yeah, and then like the villain team is really good. Like I feel like that's what Kobayashi does the best because I feel like that's what's true in Ginga Man, it's true in Shinkenger, is that the villains all feel like really fully fleshed out to the point where when they're defeated by the end, you feel sad for them as
Yeah,
opposed to like
purposefully so.
yeah. Like by the end of Tokyo, like even like Madame Noir and like Schwartz and things like characters like that, you feel bad for them, and like a character like Greta, she becomes like, I mean, she's one of the best characters in the whole show, just like development wise and like her story and everything. And just like you look at her and you can surface level just be like, okay, she's gonna be like this joke or this thing, just because she's like a big fat ugly creature, but she has such a beautiful soul that shines through it. That's the theme is
Yeah.
and like that's what makes Emperor Z like a compelling villain is that he's a guy who doesn't understand light. Like he doesn't under like he wants it so bad, but he just physically cannot comprehend what it is to truly have like that inner light inside you and the like desire to like help even the other Shadow Lion guys understand it on some level, but he can't. He's like too deep in. So he wants what he can never have. And that's what makes it like, even though he's like not a super deep villain as far as his motivation or whatever, he's sort of a tragic figure by the end.
Yeah.
I think that stuff really bolsters the show, like the villains, but then also the strength of like how silly and lighthearted the like heroes are brings that up. But then by the end, when things start taking tragic turns, it's like way more impactful because of how lighthearted it had been up to that point. So it's just like a lot of different tones mixing together in the right way.
Yeah.
I just really loved it. Like I just loved the cast. I loved the themes that were present, the villains, everything. It's a show that I still just think about, and it makes me happy. And I can go and watch random episodes and have a good time. There are still really good Sentai before and after it, of course. And if I had to pick a time period I like the most, I would say the like Car Ranger through like I don't know, maybe
Time
like
Ranger?
yeah, or maybe Gow Ranger after because Gow Ranger's really good too. So like that whole time period is just such a solid chunk of shows that really can't go wrong with any of them.
And hey, they're all on Tubi if you live in the US, so.
Yeah. Yep. So that's my answer. How about you, Buster? What do you got for
Okay.
us?
Uh it's sadly pretty predictable if you know me.
Hmm.
But I will go into more detail than I have in previous times I've talked about this. Avatar Sentai Dawn Brothers.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, I know predictable. It used to be Jetman. So it's like I went from one
Hmm.
Anue series to another.
Yeah.
And Dawn Brothers was a very special time, not just in the show, but in my life, where it's like I
Hmm.
was doing a podcast about it week to week. I could actually like dissect. I had time to like chew on it and like talk about it with people,
Hmm.
and I just loved it. Like I loved it since the preconception period, like we're having right now with GoZyuger, where it's like, oh, the
Hmm.
like I liked the CGI Ranger designs because I thought that, oh yeah,
Yeah.
like it really plays into the diverse body types of Sentai that they haven't really explored since like Go Ranger with like the big,
Hmm.
or like Jetman with like the big guy, but it's
Hmm.
like they're going like even more cartoony with it. Um, and then like just like for the age and like the diversity of ages between all the characters like also plays into that motif, and it's also
Hmm.
just it's a Sentai about stories and by extension Sentai itself, where
Yeah.
it's not really like a deconstruction in like the like traditional sense. It's just more of like playing around with all the I don't deconstruction just lost all of its meaning recently, so
Yeah.
it's
Sure.
like it's just kind of like a
I think it
buzzword.
is a. I would say it is a deconstruction in the sense of like it takes that familiar formula and like sort of like it deconstructs it, but it ends up giving you something that's you didn't know you wanted this whole time. You know,
Yeah,
you never knew that the reason you love Sentai isn't all of the epic plots or the fights or the giant robots. It's like the characters and the sitcom scenarios and things like
yeah,
that. Like putting so much focus on that and elevating that to like this mythic level and like taking it down a notch, like treating the fights and everything as a little bit less
yeah.
serious. Still good, but like less
Yeah,
like of an
there's
impactful
just a
part.
lot of amazing fights in Dawn Brothers. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God, the duels between Sonoya and Taro. Oh my,
Mm.
those always get to my
Oh
heart.
yeah, that's a peak yaoi right there, I
Yeah,
would say.
yeah, like that's probably my favorite ship in Sentai, to be honest.
Mm.
Um, and God, I could talk about it. I'm having a hard time putting it into words. It's just like it
Mm.
just feels like a fundamental part of me, and it just like I'm so glad I got to watch it week to week and do like a podcast on it, like just
Yeah.
to, like dissect it, and it just like even when other people are like, oh, it's a bit too weird, or like they misunderstand, like even if they liked it and I feel like they misunderstand it, it's just still it feels like that's special to me because it's like, oh, I understand this in a way no one else does. So,
Yeah.
because it's just yeah, and it was yeah, it's the most Sentai to ever Sentai somehow, despite it having like a
Uh-huh.
lot of motif breakages, like it's despite breaking
Yeah.
a lot from it. So.
It's a very special
I
show.
also just like continued something that I learned from Kamen Rider Geo, where I don't care about lore consistency. I care about fun characters and themes. Like I feel
Hmm.
like I that's like it just like it helped me like solidify that in my brain. Cause like
That's true.
Geo I
Yeah.
used to hate, but then I kind of like not grow up. That's a bad way to say it. Just
Hmm.
had a mindset change.
Yeah. I
So
also do think Geo started kind of weak.
yeah, that's fair.
And
Like
it
the best
was
stuff came later. So
yeah, like I think going back to it now, I'll be fine with it. But like you said, I was a little bit more annoyed coming off of Build and
yeah,
going into Geo, and then having like the first episode be a Build episode, and it feels like it's just like, what if we take these characters that you've watched over this year and just put like the cardboard cutout versions of them into the show and have, and it's like I feel like the build episode should have been like a couple episodes in or something to like
Yeah.
ease
Well,
you
they already
into
had the
the
actors on set, so it's just
exactly.
like,
Like I understand why they did it, and now I don't care. But at the time, was like a little bit.
yeah.
This sucks. What is? And then, but then I eventually was like, oh, Waz is the greatest character of all time,
True.
and you know, like all
Yeah.
those others. Like I ended up really liking Geo by the end, and yeah, Don Brothers. That's a good comparison to that because you know, like that is a show that has sort of an off-putting vibe to it because it's like trying all these things or doing all these like weird things,
Yeah.
but coming into it like after the fact as opposed to when it started, I was able to vibe with it a lot more.
Yeah.
And
I
for
could say, like, I'm
yeah,
sorry we're talking about Kamen Rider and the Sentai
no,
podcast, but
it's fine.
like, it's just like, no,
They're
I'm just talking.
connected.
Yeah, they're connected. They're basically brothers in arms. So
Mm,
yeah, a lot of similar production staff too.
yeah.
So yeah, I am just yeah, but yeah, that the Don Brothers, my number one. We'll see if GoZyuger can even like come close to it. I probably not, but like even if
Mm,
it's like 1/10, I'll be happy with GoZyuger.
yeah. And
Like
that is how I felt with by the end of like King Archer, where I was
yeah,
like, not quite. I didn't like it as much as Don Brothers, but like the ending stretch, I really really loved.
yeah.
And the final fight specifically, I was
Oh yeah,
like,
I of
like
course you would like the final fight, you Gurren
yeah,
Lagann fan.
I was like losing my goddamn mind during
Yeah,
the final fight. Um, so
yeah. It's a good final fight, and here's hoping GoZyuger will be good. But I think
mm,
this concludes the first or episode 0 or whatever the introductory episode of Toku
yeah,
Talkers. Wyatt, why don't you plug your stuff and the other podcasts
all
you
right.
do?
Go on to Blue Sky, Waz Ranger, WAZP Ranger, mostly stream of consciousness stuff, but sometimes I post about videos I may be making or podcasts I'm recording. Main squeeze right now is Cartoon Buffoons. If you want to listen to it free, go on over to It's Only Magic, my YouTube channel. Check it out. There's like 35 episodes at this point, so it's good stuff. If you want to listen to episodes a week early, go on to the Patreon, $3. You get that. You get Wow Cool Robot, which is me and my friend Wayne reviewing every single robot in existence. And then now recently, I'm winding down Doctors in Discuss, which is me and Cody. And we're moving on and doing a different show called Horror Hole. We already recorded the first episode about Barbarian. We're in an hour or so recording the next episode about Ring, the Japanese movie, not The Ring, not Ringu, but Ring. So go check that out. It's Only Magic. Bam. Patreon, $3. Good stuff. Cartoon Buffoons. We're going through all of Cartoon Network history. It's a good time. Buster, you're going to be on it at some point. It's
Yeah,
going to
I
be good.
will.
Yeah.
Maybe
So,
talking
all
about some
right.
robots. We'll see. Yeah.
That's all I got to plug.
Yeah, and I'm Buster. I have the Buster Corp YouTube channel, and you're watching this, or you should be watching this. Well, it depends. I'm still not sure where I'm uploading this on the Modular Media
Mm.
channel, where there's all sorts of podcasts you can watch. Like our weekly Shoot the Shit podcast, our monthly book club weekly Shoot the Shit
Mm.
podcast is called Modular Components. Our book club podcast is called Analytical Fanboys. We had
Mm.
Wyatt on an episode of Components once. It was pretty fun.
Ooh.
So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah. And so yeah, I'm uploading this as like a new show you can enjoy as kind of like a spiritual successor to our last Tokusatsu podcast we did on here. The one where I previously mentioned talking about Don Brothers and dissecting it.
Mm.
So that
Mm.
was Twit. But yeah, hope you can enjoy us for this hopeful year of GoZyuger. So
Yeah, baby.
yeah, this has been Toku Talk. Yeah, this has been Toku Talkers signing out.